Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine having certain, maybe deeply ingrained ideas about a place, perhaps shaped by, fleeting news headlines, maybe social media snippets, or just distant reports. And then suddenly, you're actually there, on the ground, seeing it all with your own eyes. What if that direct experience doesn't just add a layer, but it completely upends everything you thought you knew? Reveals a totally different narrative. That's exactly the kind of fascinating scenario we're diving into today. And it really offers some profound lessons, I think, in how we consume and interpret information about the world. Our focus for this deep dive is a truly unique and recent tour. It was undertaken by a high-level delegation of UN representatives and non-resident officials. And these aren't just field officers. We're talking senior regional specialists, people whose usual engagement might be, well, from a distance. They visited key development sites in Eritrea's southern region. And what makes this so compelling, and our source material so valuable, are their raw, unfiltered first-hand impressions, direct quotes, key takeaways. It gives us this rare, on-the-ground glimpse into realities, and some surprising insights, actually, that you just won't find in the usual headlines or reporting. So our mission for you, our listener, is to distill the most important, maybe the most actionable nuggets of knowledge from these accounts. We're sort of offering you a shortcut, if you like, to understanding the complexities and the often unseen progress in global development. We're going to explore through the eyes of these experienced professionals how direct, embedded engagement can truly shift perspectives, maybe even entrench perspectives, and how it can reveal crucial details that might otherwise stay hidden, challenging the very frameworks we use to understand nation building and international cooperation.
It really is an exceptional opportunity, isn't it? To look at how these prevailing external narratives, often shaped by, well, limited or maybe biased information, can be not just challenged, but fundamentally redefined. Redefined when they actually bump up against tangible realities on the ground. This isn't just about finding good news, it's about the whole methodology, really, of understanding global progress.
Absolutely. And to really appreciate the impact here, we need to start by setting the stage. This wasn't just any routine UN visit, was it? What exactly made this trip to Eritrea different? Why this particular high-level delegation?
Well, what's truly fascinating, and I think strategically quite brilliant, is how fundamentally moving the meeting changed things. From an external meeting to an internal, in-country one. It shifts the whole dynamic. See, historically, the UN country team for Eritrea, they'd hold their big annual planning meeting outside the country, often in a regional hub somewhere, which meant these senior regional folks, the non-resident specialists who cover Eritrea as part of a bigger portfolio, well, they engaged mainly through reports, maybe quick fly-in visits. But as Ms. Nala Valji, the UN resident coordinator there, pointed out, this year they were, quote, incredibly privileged to arrange that crucial annual meeting right there in Asmara. And that's not just logistics. It signals a really profound shift, you know? It moves from reporting about a country to direct, embedded engagement within it. It fosters a much more intimate, in-depth collaboration. It actually transforms the nature of the relationship itself.
That's a critical distinction. So it's not just moving the furniture, it's changing the philosophy of engagement, really. What does hosting a meeting in country signal? Especially in a place like Eritrea where, let's face it, external perceptions have often been quite complex.
Exactly. The shift, it's almost like a blueprint for how to be more relevant, more effective in complex places. When international bodies move beyond that sort of standard fly-in, fly-out approach and actually, get on the ground, it allows for a genuine co-creation of solutions. It builds trust. Trust that's really hard to achieve from afar, where interactions might feel more like oversight or assessment rather than, real partnership. By bringing these senior colleagues, these non-resident specialists, right into the country, they're not just reading reports anymore. They're seeing the challenges firsthand. They're seeing the innovations, the political will, with their own eyes. And this direct exposure, it ensures that UN strategies are tailored precisely to the specific needs and priorities of the Eritrean government and its people, not based on generalized assumptions or distant analysis. It's about cultivating shared ownership. That's paramount for sustainable development. Ms. Zavauji called it an incredible opportunity to engage directly with the government at the highest levels, not just for pleasantries, but for a deep dive. Understanding their priorities, strategizing how the UN can genuinely work with them to support those priorities, and crucially, it meant they could bring colleagues from outside Eritrea to visit their partnership sites, giving them that unfiltered first-hand look at, quote, the amazing innovations and vital work happening there on the ground. This hands-on experience, that's what turns abstract policies into real, impactful programs.
That deep on-the-ground perspective really does seem to be the linchpin here. And it led to some genuinely surprising discoveries, didn't it? Especially for those delegates who arrived with, perhaps, a certain set of preconceptions. Mr. Matthias Ananab, he's the director of the UNDP Regional Service Center, that's the UN Development Program, focused on poverty reduction, sustainable development. He had this really striking, almost disarming confession about his initial thoughts. Tell us about that.
Well, it raises such an important question for all of us, doesn't it? How often do these external narratives, the ones in the media, maybe in historical reports, how often do they shape how we see a place? Only to be completely redefined, maybe even turned upside down by direct empirical experience. Mr. Nawab's experience is just a powerful, really transparent example of exactly that phenomenon.
He really put it out there, didn't he? Quite candidly. He said, and I'm quoting him directly here, "Before I came to Eritrea, I knew nothing about this beautiful country, and the little that I had heard about it was always a negative story." That's quite an admission, reflects the challenge many nations face with their global image. But then he quickly followed up his immediate impression after just arriving. "I arrived here on Monday, just 3 days ago, and I was pleasantly impressed." That's a rapid, profound shift, undeniable. So what specific things, what observations or interactions do you think caused such a quick, positive change for him and presumably for others on this short but intensive tour? What breaks through that initial negative framing so fast?
It speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the sheer power of direct observation versus relying only on external media or secondhand accounts, especially when those accounts are dominated by just one narrative, often a critical one. Mr. Naab specifically mentioned his deep appreciation for the government's hospitality. Sure, but more significantly, he said he was truly impressed with their commitment and clear understanding of their purpose, which suggests that beyond just seeing buildings or roads, he encountered something more tangible, a sense of unified vision, unwavering determination. That resonated deeply. He talked about being impressed not just as a development worker, but also as an African. Being from Ghana himself, he found real inspiration. Inspiration in the stories of resilience of the government and the determination with which, over the years, the government has been able to drive development and uphold a principle of development that is truly generated and provided for its citizens. So this isn't just about admiring what's built, it's about understanding the philosophy underneath it all, the sustained effort, the national ethos driving it. It implies he saw actual evidence of policies designed for broad benefit, which challenged any prior ideas he might have had about, limited welfare or directionless governance. And the speed of his change of heart, it suggests the reality on the ground was just so dramatically different from the narrative he'd absorbed. It instantly created this cognitive dissonance, resolved only by the empirical evidence right in front of him. It really underscores that for him, the commitment he observed towards the people fundamentally contradicted that negative story he'd always heard.
That's a crucial point. It's not just the physical stuff, but the spirit, the resilience, the principles driving it. And this determination really seemed to shine through when the delegates visited specific sites. This is where the observation became really tangible, wasn't it? Because they didn't just meet officials. They went to specific places that left a lasting impression, showing concrete progress.
Let's start with healthcare. What did they find at Mendefera Hospital? What makes it such a compelling example?
Ah, yes, Mendefera Hospital. The impressions from there are particularly illuminating, especially when you think about that core development principle of leaving no one behind.
Mm.
The key part of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. It's all about equitable access to essential services, right? Regardless of where you live or your economic status. Right. Methodology noted it had amazing facilities and a truly skilled, dedicated, and committed medical team. But Dr. Nanso Ipram, the WHO representative of World Health Organization, focusing on global public health, he seemed genuinely astonished. He explicitly said, "We couldn't imagine such services in Mendefera." Quote, "At the hospital we visited, we saw state-of-the-art facilities, from functional digital X-ray machines to even AI-powered X-ray machines." AI-powered X-rays. In a regional hospital, not just the capital. That's genuinely cutting-edge stuff. For listeners who might not be immediately familiar, what does AI-powered actually mean in this context? How's it different from a standard digital X-ray? And what kind of impact does that have, practically speaking, on diagnosis, especially in areas where maybe specialist radiologists aren't always physically present?
That's a fantastic and really vital question. Okay, so a standard digital X-ray, it captures the image, right? But then it still needs interpretation by a trained radiologist, which is a huge improvement over old film X-rays, of course, but it still heavily relies on human expertise. And that expertise can be scarce, particularly in remote or under-resourced areas. Now, an AI-powered X-ray system that integrates artificial intelligence algorithms, These algorithms have been trained on massive data sets, think millions of X-ray images showing all sorts of things: tuberculosis, pneumonia, fractures, even subtle early signs of certain cancers. So these AI systems, they act like highly sophisticated diagnostic assistants. What they do is instantly analyze that digital image. They look for subtle patterns, anomalies, disease indicators that might frankly be missed by the human eye or would take a human specialist much longer to spot. They can flag critical findings, highlight areas of concern, even provide preliminary diagnostic suggestions with incredible speed and accuracy. So, in a regional hospital like Mendefera, far from the central medical hubs, this means several things. First, quicker, more precise diagnoses for patients potentially life-saving for acute conditions. Second, it helps prioritize urgent cases more effectively. And crucially, it helps bridge that gap in specialist access. Less experienced clinicians on site get immediate intelligent support. It effectively democratizes high-level diagnostic capabilities. This makes sure that a patient in Mendefera gets a diagnostic quality and speed comparable to what they might find in a major city without needing to travel for days. It's a very tangible manifestation of ensuring equitable access to advanced medical care, pushing that frontier of healthcare right out to the periphery.
That's an incredibly powerful use of technology for equity, isn't it? And beyond the tech, Dr. Abram also highlighted something else really remarkable about the healthcare services there, something that extends across the whole nation, apparently. He specifically noted that in Eritrea, health facilities provide service free of charge. Free. And he made it clear this is against a background of limited resources. He emphasized this isn't something you see a lot in many countries, even the so-called developed countries. I think this is commendable. What are the implications of a policy like that for public health, for social equity, especially in a resource-constrained place where healthcare costs can just be catastrophic for families?
This commitment to free healthcare, especially acknowledging the limited resources backdrop, it demonstrates an incredibly strong sense of public ownership, doesn't it? And a profound government commitment to the fundamental well-being of its people. The implications are multifaceted and, yeah, profound. Firstly, it just removes financial barriers to access, full stop. In so many nations, even developed ones, you've got out-of-pocket costs, co-pays, complex insurance, all things that can stop people, especially the most vulnerable, from getting medical help until things get really critical. By making healthcare free at the point of service, Eritrea encourages early consultation, preventive care, consistent treatment. And that directly translates into better public health outcomes, right? Diseases caught earlier, chronic conditions managed better, less burden on emergency services down the line. Secondly, from a social equity angle, it enshrines health as a fundamental right, not a privilege based on your income or where you happen to live. It ensures every Eritrean, theoretically, has equal access to quality medical care. And that level of universal access, well, it's not easily achieved, even in much richer nations struggling with healthcare reform. For Eritrea to uphold this principle, despite facing resource constraints, historical challenges, it speaks volumes about its national priorities, its unique social contract with its citizens. It's really a testament to a deep-seated commitment to the welfare of their entire population, a prioritization that understandably stands out to someone like Dr. Epram, whose whole job is global public health and equitable access. It just exemplifies a very proactive approach to national health, reducing health disparities, fostering a healthier, more productive population.
That's a truly powerful example of commitment in action, going beyond just policy to real, tangible, life-changing access. Okay, moving beyond healthcare, the delegates also saw significant progress in another critical sector, food security and agricultural innovation. Mrs. Valji, for instance, mentioned a delightful lunch at the Azeb dairy farm, where she apparently savored some of the best cheese I've ever tasted. High praise. But it wasn't just about the delicious food, right? She also mentioned the crucial opportunity to visit communities and witness firsthand the remarkable efforts in water conservation terracing, which are vital initiatives for ensuring food security.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the scale and significance of these agricultural efforts.
And that's where you really start to see this very holistic, integrated approach to development. It moves beyond just isolated projects into interconnected systems. The delegates were clearly witnessing a concerted effort to build agricultural resilience from the ground up.
Exactly. And Tali Ainov, who's the head of UNIDO in Kenya, that's the UN Industrial Development Organization, focused on sustainable industrial development, value addition, jobs, reducing food waste. She weighed in on this. Her observations were particularly insightful given UNIDO's specific mission. She expressed real excitement, saying, "It was incredible to see with my own eyes the work that is actually done in the country by the people of the country." What specific examples really stood out to her, and how do they tie directly into UNIDO's mission of fostering sustainable industrial growth and adding value?
What's truly fascinating here is the visible synergy you see between different sectors. It shows a really well-coordinated national strategy. It's not just about, say, advanced farming practices. It's about integrating them with industrial development and critical infrastructure. Take the water conservation terracing Mizivaldji saw. In a country like Eritrea, facing huge challenges, arid climate, erratic rain, soil erosion terracing is an ancient technique, but incredibly effective. You build steps into hillsides, right? Slows down water runoff, increases infiltration, stops soil degradation, creates more land you can actually farm. This isn't just about growing more food in one season, it's about making agriculture sustainable, resilient, especially with climate change. It protects the land, recharges groundwater, ensures more consistent yields, foundational stuff for food security. Then you have the Azab dairy farm. INF specifically highlighted that as a prime example of value addition. Nalgo, UNIDO's mandate isn't just about raw production like milk from cows. It's about transforming those raw materials into higher value products. Milk itself has value, sure, but turn it into cheese, yogurt, other dairy products, you significantly increase its market value, its shelf life. And that process, it requires infrastructure, technology, skilled labor, so it creates more economic opportunities, jobs, income for the local community. It's a tangible way to boost the local economy, reduce reliance on imported goods, contributes to national self-sufficiency. And underpinning all of this, as Inav also noted, is foundational infrastructure, like the Great Dam, Mislam Dam, that is built by Eritreans, she called it impressive, pointed out that a reliable water source is fundamental for every industry, not just farming. The Mislam Dam is this testament to large-scale, self-reliant infrastructure development, serves multiple purposes. Irrigation for agriculture, maybe water for industrial use, perhaps even domestic supply. And the emphasis on it being built by Eritreans, that's crucial. It signifies deep commitment to local ownership, building capacity, self-reliance, and pulling off major national projects. So what the delegates saw wasn't just isolated projects, it was an interconnected system, sustainable agriculture enabled by water infrastructure. With the farm output then processed through local industries to create more value, more jobs, and a stronger, more resilient food system for the whole nation, it's a very strategic, very integrated approach.
That built by Eritreans part about the dam really underscores that sense of local ownership and capacity, doesn't it? A nation really taking its development into its own hands. So, given all these impressive on-the-ground initiatives, what does this all mean for how international organizations like the UN can really collaborate effectively with a nation like Eritrea, where there's clearly so much happening locally? Dr. Ibrahim touched on this, didn't he? Saying where there's public ownership, government commitment, and the government at the driving seat. Partners like us are also on the ground to collaborate. What does it actually mean for government to be clear and consistent in its development track? And why is that such a pivotal factor for fostering effective, impactful international partnerships?
Well, this raises an absolutely fundamental question, doesn't it? About the best, most sustainable models for international development now in the 21st century. The delegates, they repeatedly highlighted the Eritrean government's clear vision, its profound commitment, which they saw as absolutely essential for partners like the UN to effectively complement national efforts. When a government has a defined direction, transparent long-term plans, consistent priorities, it provides the stable, predictable framework for external partners. This clarity allows organizations like the UN to understand precisely where their expertise, their technology, their resources can best fit in without duplicating efforts or creating parallel structures or, working at cross purposes. It shifts the whole dynamic away from external imposition of agendas towards genuine collaboration, where partners serve as catalysts, as enablers, rather than trying to be the primary drivers. A clear and consistent development track, it means the government articulates its national goals. It allocates its own, often limited resources toward those goals, and it maintains these priorities over time, even when things get tough. That signals stability, serious intent. It means there's a coherent national strategy that the UN and others can actually align with, rather than having to guess or constantly adapt to shifting priorities. It basically creates a receptive, efficient environment for external support. As Taliaina from UNIDO noted, partners can then assist through technology, through specific expertise, filling gaps where needed, but always in support of the established national vision. This collaborative model, driven by strong government leadership, mutual understanding, that's clearly what Mr. Matthias Knob was seeing. When he observed that mutual appreciation between the UN and the government and the recognition that the UN actually has a lot to offer to support the government's vision, it's a testament to a partnership built on shared goals, respect for national sovereignty and development, and leveraging the strengths that are already there.
So it's about making smart, targeted contributions that build on what's already happening rather than trying to start everything from scratch. That sounds incredibly efficient. and empowering for the country itself.
Precisely. INAV even pointed out, quote, the majority of the foundations have already been laid, so we won't have to start from scratch. And that's a crucial observation. It signifies that Eritrea has already invested significantly in basic infrastructure and human capital development, in policy frameworks. This isn't a nation just waiting for outsiders to come and lay the groundwork. It has its own vision, its own workforce, its own capacity honed over years of self-reliance, which means external support can be far more impactful. It acts as a force multiplier, you see, building on an already established base. So, for example, instead of funding basic education systems from the ground up, UN support might focus on specialized training for healthcare pros or advanced agricultural research, areas where targeted expertise or technology transfer can yield really significant returns on that existing foundation. This approach, it respects national ownership. It ensures external aid is catalytic, accelerating progress rather than creating dependency. It's a model of partnership, frankly, that many development agencies aspire to but don't always manage to achieve.
It sounds like a truly integrated, mutually respectful approach, one that really values the efforts already underway. Okay, let's unpack this a bit further then. Beyond the specific sites, the immediate impressions, what were the overarching, maybe the most profound takeaways from this whole deep dive for the delegates themselves, lessons they'll carry forward? Ms. Nzvelevalji, for instance, she summarized her key insights by saying that direct engagement yielded vital insights into government priorities, health, education, food security, highlighting immense potential for partnerships.
And if we connect that to the broader picture of global development, well, aligning international efforts with a nation's own self-identified priorities. That's absolutely crucial for achieving sustainable development goals. It has to be. It's about empowering local ownership, self-determination, rather than imposing external agendas or some one-size-fits-all template. When the UN or any international partner truly gets what Eritrea's government sees as its core needs, its national pillars in health, education, food security, and where its energy and resources are already focused, well, then their support can be far more effective. It can truly resonate with the local context. This fosters that sense of shared responsibility, builds trust, paves the way for long-term impactful solutions that are genuinely owned and sustained by the Eritrean people themselves. It's moving from that old donor-recipient dynamic to a true partnership.
And Mr. Mathisa Naab, whose perspective shifted so dramatically. Remember, he shared 3 particularly powerful takeaways that really seemed to crystallize the whole experience. First, he highlighted the deepening of the partnership between the UN and the government, driven by mutual appreciation. That seems to echo everything we've just been discussing about effective collaboration, mutual respect.
Indeed, it does. It just underscores the paramount importance of relationship building. Genuine respect in international development work, when both sides feel valued, when they understand each other's roles, aspirations, it creates a much more fertile ground for real progress, for overcoming challenges together.
His second takeaway really hits at the heart of perception, doesn't it? Narrative, the often unseen realities of global development. He spoke about the country's vision, which he said has sense of purpose. And then he made this crucial, really powerful point. The narration of the country must change. The narrative must change to tell the real, positive story of this country. And then he added, this is why, going back, I'll be an ambassador of Eritrea, to tell what good resides here in terms of the people and in terms of the government's vision to ensure that development reaches everybody. That's not just a strong statement. It feels like a call to action. What does Mr. Naab's explicit demand for a narrative change truly imply? And what's the power of one individual, even a high-ranking official, taking on this ambassadorial role?
Oh, what's truly fascinating and profoundly important here is Mr. Nahab's explicit, almost impassioned call to action about the narrative. This isn't just, let's share some good news. It's about actively countering existing, pervasive, often negative perceptions. Perceptions formed, as he himself admitted, based on limited or biased information, or maybe historical context that just don't fully reflect the current realities he saw on the ground. And these negative narratives, they can have real consequences, right? Deter investment, hinder partnerships, perpetuate misconceptions, even if they don't align with the progress being made. His statement highlights the profound impact firsthand accounts can have in shaping global understanding, and the critical, almost moral role individuals can play as ambassadors. Quote, When someone with his professional standing, his initial skepticism undergoes such a dramatic shift, their personal testimony carries immense weight. He's not just reporting facts, he's advocating for a more balanced, accurate portrayal of a nation based on direct empirical observation of its people, its government's demonstrable commitment to broad-based development. The power of an ambassador like Mr. Naab lies in their ability to humanize the data, to bring a personal conviction that can cut through layers of pre-existing bias, misinformation, influencing not just policy, but public opinion, too. It's a recognition that perceptions, positive or negative, often lag way behind the actual realities on the ground, and it takes deliberate, authentic effort to bridge that gap, to ensure that what he saw, that development reaching everybody, becomes the globally understood truth.
And his third takeaway was even more personal. Yet it feels broadly applicable, maybe even a guiding philosophy for development itself, he said. Everything is possible when you believe in your purpose. They believed and were consistent on what they have believed in their purpose. He connected this directly to Eritrea's enduring spirit, its approach to development over the years.
Yeah, and that's not just some feel-good statement, is it? It's a profound reflection of the consistent effort, the resilience, the singular vision that clearly underlies the significant progress the delegates witnessed. It speaks directly to Eritrea's unique journey. Its philosophy of self-reliance, sustained commitment, often in really challenging circumstances. It's like a guiding principle that has allowed them to achieve remarkable milestones despite external pressures or limited traditional resources. Mr. Naad is essentially saying that the consistency, the determination he witnessed, it wasn't accidental. It was born from this unwavering belief in a national purpose. A purpose, as he saw it, to ensure development reaches every single citizen. This observation, it just reinforces the idea that true transformation stems from deeply held conviction, sustained, coordinated action. It demonstrates what's possible when a nation is truly unified in its developmental goals. And it echoes Tali Ainav's overarching conclusion from UNIDO, doesn't it? When she just stated simply, "My main conclusion is that there is a lot going on here on the ground." A powerful understatement, perhaps, but one that perfectly encapsulates the surprising, often overlooked vibrancy of Eritrea's development landscape.
So you've just heard directly from high-ranking UN officials, people whose recent tour of Eritrea completely shifted their perspectives, revealing a landscape of significant, often surprising development, strong government commitment, profound resilience, all too often unseen in those broader narratives. We've talked about state-of-the-art healthcare facilities, including those AI-powered diagnostics in regional hospitals, really demonstrating a commitment to equity. We explored innovative agricultural practices like water conservation terracing, robust infrastructure like the Misalam Dam, built by locals, and a clear national vision for development that prioritizes self-reliance and comprehensive access to services for everyone.
This deep dive into Eritrea, seen through the eyes of these experienced UN delegates, it really does raise an important, maybe even urgent question for all of us, doesn't it? In this age of information overload, where narratives can be so easily shaped by limited data or distant perspectives, how much of our understanding of global progress, or lack thereof, is fundamentally shaped by incomplete information? What valuable lessons, what innovative solutions, what powerful stories of human determination might we be missing? Just by not looking deeper, by not seeking firsthand experience, by not challenging the headlines. What other narratives are out there, really, waiting to be discovered? Narratives that could fundamentally change our understanding of what's truly possible in development, in resilience, in nation building.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That true understanding often comes from going beyond the surface, from challenging our own assumptions, from listening to the stories on the ground, and from seeking out those firsthand accounts that can fundamentally shift our perceptions. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep digging for the real story.